Awaken your spirit, chosen ones. Every lie leaves fingerprints, and your phone is the crime scene. Somewhere between the notifications and the night mode, truth started keeping receipts. It didn't need witnesses, just Wi-Fi. And when the curtain finally dropped, it wasn't the government, hackers, or secret agents who exposed them. It was their own screenshots, voice notes, and half-deleted drafts. Ironically, the same device they used to fake perfection became the witness that testified against them. They thought encryption could outsmart karma. They believed delete for everyone meant forgiveness. But data is loyal, painfully loyal, and once the evidence starts sinking, even their lies get backed up to the cloud. Every just kidding text, every midnight confession followed by a NVM, every photo taken but never posted, all of it became part of a digital diary they never intended to publish. And here's the twist. Their downfall wasn't caused by exposure. It was caused by belief. They believed no one would ever look deep enough, that the algorithm would keep their secrets under lock and code. But the truth doesn't hide behind passwords. It just waits for the perfect moment to leak. So now, as their phones light up like little judgment days, every ping sounds like karma delivering a notification. Evidence found. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear it whisper. You typed your truth yourself. Welcome to the revelation. The receipts have arrived. Number 1. Their screens reflected what their souls tried to hide. Every selfie, every caption, every story they posted was never just about expression. It was a negotiation between who they were and who they wanted people to believe they were. The glow of the phone became a stage light, and the person holding it turned into a performer rehearsing sincerity. Yet behind every smile there was tension, a quiet struggle to maintain a version of themselves that reality could no longer support. Phones don't just show faces, they record patterns. They expose inconsistencies no one admits, but everyone senses. The timestamps, the tone shifts, the sudden changes in energy. They reveal when someone's trying too hard to convince. And that's what happened here. Their phone began telling the story they tried to silence, a story of contradictions. One message said they were fine, another search history said they weren't. The camera roll showed celebrations, the deleted folder showed collapse. In the digital age, truth doesn't need to shout. It lives in small data. The late-night edits, the messages typed and erased, the screenshots saved just in case. The things they thought they buried behind passwords became reflections that refused to fade. What they didn't realize is that technology doesn't just store information, it preserves intention. And intention, once captured, never lies. They spent years mastering how to look genuine, but never learned how to be honest. Their reflection on the screen looked convincing to others, but hollow to themselves. And when the evidence surfaced, it wasn't shocking, it was poetic. The same light that once flattered them became the same light that exposed them. The screen that used to project their false confidence turned into a mirror too clear to deny. In the end, their phone didn't betray them. It revealed them. It showed that no amount of filters could hide the fingerprints of deceit. The mask they built digitally was never meant to last, because the truth always finds a way to glow through the cracks. Number 2. The phone became a mirror, not a tool. It stopped being something they used and started becoming something that used them. Every tap, scroll, and swipe wasn't just interaction, it was reflection. The screen began to echo their desires, insecurities, and hidden motives back at them, frame by frame. What they thought was control was really confession. Their phone quietly recorded the parts of them they tried hardest to deny, what they searched for when no one was watching, who they reached out to when loneliness kicked in, and what they saved for later but never deleted. It's strange how easily people mistake technology for privacy. They assumed the device in their hand was neutral, a silent servant. But it wasn't. It was observant, a mirror that doesn't forget. The more they used it to shape the world's perception of them, the more it revealed who they truly were beneath the image. They used their phones to hide, yet every message, every voice note, every late-night scroll left a digital reflection too accurate to escape. And that's the quiet tragedy. They thought they were the ones managing what others saw, but the truth is, their phone was documenting their real story in the background. It became an archive of contradictions, the kindness they preached but didn't practice, the loyalty they demanded but didn't return, the authenticity they claimed but couldn't live. They didn't realize that every action synced, every secret stored, and every habit became a pattern too consistent to fake. When the evidence surfaced, it didn't need interpretation. Their phone had already been the witness, the recorder, and the mirror. It showed what filters can't cover: intention. Not the polished version they sold to the world, but the raw version they kept locked behind a passcode. And that's why their downfall felt so inevitable. Because in the end, the phone didn't betray them. It simply reflected what was always there, waiting for them to finally look. Number 3. They documented their own downfall without realizing it. Every message they sent, every video they saved, every note they thought was private became a quiet piece of evidence. They weren't being watched by enemies. They were recording themselves. What looked like casual communication was actually confession. The trail they left wasn't made of words, but of choices, the kind that reveal who someone truly is when they think no one will ever trace it back. They didn't know that in the digital world, nothing really disappears. Deleting only hides, it doesn't erase. Their conversations, their plans, their half-hearted apologies, all of it lingered like ghosts in the data. The more they tried to control the story, the more the details contradicted them. A screenshot here, a voice note there, small pieces that didn't mean much on their own, but together painted the full truth. Their downfall wasn't built overnight. It was constructed in fragments they created with their own hands. It's a strange kind of irony, to become the author of your own exposure. They thought they were clever, keeping multiple stories straight, switching tones depending on who was reading. But phones don't lie. Metadata doesn't bend for emotion. It captures everything. The time they hesitated before replying, the change in typing speed when they got nervous, the photos taken when they said they were somewhere else. They left a map so detailed that even silence became suspicious. When the evidence surfaced, it wasn't an ambush. It was the truth finally assembling itself. All those scattered bits of their digital life lined up perfectly, forming a story too coherent to deny. They had spent years building a reputation, and only seconds undoing it with their own fingerprints. The irony is that they didn't need anyone to expose them. They had already done the work. Every word, every click, every deleted draft, it was all self-documentation. In trying to control perception, they left proof of intention, and when truth arrived, all it had to do was hit play. Number 4. Their digital silence was louder than any lie. It wasn't the things they posted that exposed them. It was the things they didn't. The absence of words, the sudden pauses, the spaces between replies. That's where the truth hid. They mastered the art of pretending nothing was wrong, but silence has a way of speaking louder than confession. Every unread message, every ignored tag, every conversation left hanging became evidence of a conscience wrestling with exposure. They thought silence made them mysterious, when in reality it made them transparent. Because silence doesn't protect you, it reveals where you're most afraid to look. Their refusal to engage, their calculated distance, their sudden disappearance. All of it showed more about their guilt than any admission could. In an age where everyone overshares, withholding becomes suspicious. They believed that by saying nothing, they controlled the narrative. But silence didn't guard them, it betrayed them. Their online stillness had weight. People could feel it, that uneasy quiet that follows when someone who used to speak suddenly goes mute. They weren't hiding from others. They were hiding from the mirror their phone had become. Every unsent message, every draft that never saw daylight, carried the echo of things they couldn't justify. The truth wasn't missing. It was stuck in their throat, too heavy to type, but too real to delete. What they failed to understand is that energy doesn't vanish online. It lingers. Silence can be screenshotted too, just not in pixels, in perception. The more they tried to vanish, the clearer their outline became. Their avoidance spoke, their absence accused, and their quiet became confession. In the end, it wasn't exposure that finished them. It was restraint. Because silence isn't safety when truth is the one listening. And in their desperate attempt to stay unseen, they ended up being fully understood. Number 5. The algorithm didn't betray them. Their pattern did. They blamed technology, assuming it had turned against them, when in truth it had simply learned them too well. Every habit, every like, every late-night scroll became part of a rhythm they couldn't break. Their actions formed a pattern so repetitive even code could recognize the inconsistency between who they claimed to be and what they constantly did. Algorithms don't have emotions, but they do have precision. And that precision saw through their performance long before anyone else did. They thought they could outsmart the system by curating their image, switching tones, deleting traces. But patterns are stubborn. They always leave fingerprints. The algorithm didn't need to see their face to know when something was off. The timing, the engagement, the energy all started contradicting the story they were selling. Their fake sincerity was consistent enough to look real to humans, but too mechanical to fool the math. The system caught on. Their lies had a rhythm, and once that rhythm repeated too many times, it became data. The truth is, the algorithm didn't expose them. It simply mirrored the truth they coded through their behavior. Every decision online leaves residue. When they post, what they search, who they linger on, how long they pause on certain content. That's the real truth trail. Not the words, but the rhythm. And once the rhythm breaks from authenticity, even an indifferent program can detect imbalance. What destroyed them wasn't technology, it was predictability. They moved like someone trying to look unpredictable, rehearsed, careful, and controlled. But control always glitches under pressure. The algorithm didn't have to betray them, it just observed. Over time it learned that behind their constant adjustments was fear. Behind their curated calm was guilt. So when the pattern finally revealed itself, no one needed proof. The data already confessed. In the end, the code didn't judge them. It just told the truth, perfectly, mercilessly, and without emotion. Number 6. They used their phone to craft a persona and accidentally killed their character. It started small, a filter here, a caption there, a harmless exaggeration meant to impress. But slowly, the performance became the person. Every post had to look effortless, every story had to feel important, and every word had to fit the script of who they pretended to be. The line between authenticity and acting blurred, until even they couldn't tell which one was real anymore. Validation became oxygen. They didn't breathe unless someone reacted. Likes, comments, and shares turned into proof of existence. The more attention they gained, the more approval they needed, until their entire self-worth depended on feedback loops written by strangers. They weren't living. They were uploading evidence that they existed, and while their persona grew brighter, their character quietly dimmed in the background. The self that once felt things deeply, the one capable of honesty, started to fade beneath performance fatigue. They crafted a version of themselves so perfect it became impossible to maintain. Every post required strategy, every smile required calculation, every thought required polishing before release. They called it branding, but it was really slow erasure, death by curation. The real them, with flaws and doubts and softness, got buried under what the algorithm rewarded: consistency, not sincerity. They became an avatar, smooth around the edges, polished beyond recognition. The tragedy is that it worked for a while. People adored the persona, unaware they were praising a ghost, but underneath the attention was a hollow echo, a quiet awareness that they'd built a world too artificial to feel at home in. They didn't lose their soul all at once. They deleted it one post at a time. In the end, their phone didn't destroy them. It just reflected the exchange they made. They traded depth for display, honesty for engagement, and connection for applause. What was left wasn't a person, but a product. And the saddest part is, they didn't even realize the murder was self-inflicted. Number 7. The evidence wasn't in the messages. It was in the motive. Words can be cleaned, edited, and rearranged, but intention leaves a stain that no delete button can erase. They thought they were clever, using careful phrasing, polite tones, and strategic pauses to sound innocent. But language always leaks emotion. Beneath every word was a trace of calculation, a small but undeniable pulse of manipulation. It wasn't what they said that exposed them. It was the reason they said it, and the energy behind it that couldn't be disguised. You can't fake motive. It shows up in timing, in choice of words, in how long they take to reply, and in what they avoid saying altogether. Every message carried a scent, a hidden tone of self-interest, fear, or guilt. Even when their words were kind, they rang hollow. Their conversations had rhythm but no sincerity, motion but no meaning. They spoke to maintain control, not connection. That's why people eventually stopped trusting them. Not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. Motive has weight. It bends every interaction slightly, pulling it toward the truth. When someone speaks from honesty, their words feel grounded. When they speak from deceit, their words float, detached, rehearsed, mechanical. Their messages read like performances, carefully timed to appear authentic, while hiding what they were really after. But consistency is hard to fake. Over time, small cracks appeared, repeated excuses, mirrored phrases, moments where emotion and wording didn't align. Their downfall didn't come from exposure, but from exhaustion. Keeping up appearances requires constant editing, and eventually the cracks became too wide to patch. The truth wasn't buried in their texts. It was hiding between the lines, pulsing through every well-crafted lie. And once people learned to read intention instead of language, everything unraveled. In the end, the words weren't the evidence. The energy was. Because you can rewrite a sentence, but you can't rewrite why you wrote it. Number 8. They tried to erase the past, forgetting data has memory. They thought deleting meant disappearing, as if pressing remove could rewrite history. But the digital world doesn't forget. It files everything away quietly, precisely, waiting for context. Every message deleted still echoes somewhere in the system. Every file erased still lingers in the margins of code. Truth doesn't vanish when you hit delete. It just changes location. And when the time comes, it resurfaces cleaner, clearer, undeniable. They moved through the digital world like magicians, confident in their ability to make things vanish. They wiped chats, cleared call logs, and reformatted phones, convinced that what couldn't be seen no longer existed. But data isn't emotional. It's factual. It doesn't care about regret, shame, or reputation. Its only loyalty is to accuracy, and accuracy remembers everything. The very systems they relied on to hide their tracks were built to preserve them. They misunderstood the world they lived in. They thought the internet was temporary, that digital meant disposable. But the truth is, nothing online truly dies. It only sleeps until someone searches with the right keyword. Their attempts at erasure became proof of guilt, because innocence doesn't panic when confronted with memory. Every deletion spoke louder than any confession. The more they tried to hide, the more visible the pattern became. It wasn't vengeance that exposed them. It was consistency. The data had no desire for justice, no moral code, just a record of events as they happened. When the truth reappeared, it didn't need drama. It came back with timestamps. What they thought was gone had simply been archived, not by enemies but by design. In the end, they learned too late that the digital world doesn't hold grudges. It just holds records. And when those records resurface, they don't seek revenge. They simply replay the truth, frame by frame, without emotion, without bias, and without mercy. Number 9. Their privacy was never protection. It was a prison. They mistook isolation for safety, convinced that secrecy equaled power. Every password, every locked folder, every hidden account was meant to shield them from exposure. But over time, those same barriers stopped being defense mechanisms and started becoming confinement. The walls they built to keep truth out ended up keeping them in, surrounded by the very lies they tried to control. Privacy for them wasn't about peace. It was about hiding. They didn't want solitude. They wanted silence from accountability. They constructed digital fortresses, layer after layer, until even they lost track of what was real and what was curated. The fear of being seen made them paranoid, constantly adjusting settings, deleting evidence, rewriting stories. But you can't build a sanctuary out of secrets. You can only build a cage. And inside that cage, they were forced to live with the constant anxiety that someone, somewhere, might find the key. They called it boundaries, but it was really avoidance. They stopped letting people in because vulnerability threatened the illusion. The more they hid, the heavier it became to maintain. They started policing their own honesty, terrified that one wrong word, one old message, one accidental screenshot could collapse everything they'd built. Privacy stopped being comfort. It became pressure. Every alert felt like exposure. Every notification felt like a knock on the door. The irony was that no one was even chasing them. They were running from the echo of their own choices. Truth doesn't chase, it waits. And eventually those walls of secrecy began to close in, not because anyone broke through, but because their own conscience did. When the truth finally arrived, it didn't have to force its way in. The door was already unlocked by fear. What they called privacy had only ever been solitary confinement, a quiet, invisible punishment for the lies they swore no one would ever find. Number 10. They mistook attention for power, until it turned on them. For a while the spotlight felt like validation. Every view, every mention, every reaction seemed to confirm their importance. They believed being seen meant being significant, that popularity was proof of strength. But attention is a fragile kind of currency. It spends fast and comes with interest. What they didn't understand was that the same gaze that applauds can also accuse, and the same crowd that once cheered can switch to watching in silence when the performance cracks. They built their identity on visibility, constantly feeding the need to be noticed. The more people watched, the more they believed they were untouchable. But power earned through attention isn't real power. It's borrowed. It lasts only as long as the audience stays entertained. And when the illusion starts to fade, The spotlight doesn't dim out of kindness. It sharpens. The light that once flattered them began to reveal the wrinkles in their lies, the inconsistencies in their image, the flaws they had tried so hard to filter out. They learned too late that visibility isn't safety, it's exposure. Every word they spoke, every move they made, every detail they posted became evidence waiting for context. People started connecting dots they never meant to show. What once felt like control became a slow, public unraveling. Attention magnified everything, the charm and the cracks. And when the cracks widened, the audience didn't look away, it leaned in. That was the moment they realized power without depth collapses under pressure. They had spent so long chasing relevance that they forgot how to be real. The same eyes that once made them feel alive now felt like judgment. And in that harsh glare, they finally understood. The light that made them visible was never meant to celebrate them. It was meant to reveal them. Visibility isn't victory when the light starts asking questions. Number 11. The phone didn't expose them. It revealed what they already were. Technology didn't betray them. It just held up a mirror too accurate to ignore. They wanted to believe that exposure came from being hacked, leaked, or betrayed by others, but the truth was quieter and far more unsettling. Their downfall wasn't caused by technology, it was simply recorded by it. The phone didn't twist facts or invent lies, it just documented them faithfully, without emotion, without bias. They used their devices as tools for control, to craft narratives and hide contradictions. But every time they lied, bragged, or performed, their phone stored evidence of it: screenshots, timestamps, drafts, search histories, digital breadcrumbs. It wasn't revenge, it was record-keeping. The phone didn't ruin them, it preserved them exactly as they were when no one was watching. They wanted to appear authentic, but the data said otherwise. It showed the gaps between what they claimed and what they did, between their words and their behavior. What's poetic about their exposure is that it came from their own habits. The phone revealed not just their actions, but their intentions. The repeated searches, the quiet edits, the fake apologies typed and erased. It all spoke louder than any message they ever sent. Every notification, every saved draft, every deleted text became a fingerprint of motive. The device didn't invent the story. It simply arranged the truth into order. When it all came to light, they called it betrayal, as if technology had turned against them. But that's not what happened. The phone stayed loyal to truth. It remembered what they wanted forgotten and showed what they wanted buried. In the end, it didn't destroy their reputation. It clarified it. Because technology doesn't have an agenda. It only reflects what it's given. And what it revealed wasn't a scandal. It was the person they had always been, now seen without filters, edits, or excuses. Number 12. They lived through filters until the filter cracked. Every photo, every caption, every carefully selected angle became a mask layered over exhaustion. They weren't chasing beauty, they were chasing control. Control over perception, over judgment, over the fear of being ordinary. The filters weren't just digital. They became psychological, emotional, even moral. They edited not just their images but their lives, cropping out truth, brightening facades, and blurring the edges where guilt and insecurity lived. At first it worked. The world applauded the version of them that looked flawless, confident, composed. Validation came in waves, and for a moment it felt like peace. But the problem with performance is that it demands consistency, and the truth has no patience for scripts. Behind every filtered moment, real emotions started to pile up: jealousy, regret, exhaustion, emptiness, things that couldn't be softened by contrast adjustments. The more they polished their image, the more they decayed underneath it. When the filter finally cracked, it didn't shatter loudly, it split silently. The curated calm started to slip. Their tone changed, their energy dimmed. The cracks appeared in small ways, shorter replies, longer absences, captions that didn't match the eyes behind the photo. And when the truth finally pushed through, it wasn't scandalous. It was sad. The perfection they built couldn't sustain the weight of being human. Without the filter, what remained wasn't glamorous. It was raw. No edits, no glow, no illusion of control. Just the real cost of pretending too long. The irony is that the person underneath was always more interesting than the one they portrayed. But they were too addicted to approval to ever find out. In the end, the filter didn't protect them. It imprisoned them. It made them allergic to authenticity. When it broke, so did the illusion, and all that was left was the unfiltered consequence, a version of themselves they'd spent years trying to hide, finally standing in its own unedited light. Number 13. They were never cancelled. They self-destructed in HD. What everyone saw as a scandal was really a slow implosion finally reaching the surface. The outrage, the headlines, the public judgment, all of it was just the smoke from a fire they had been feeding privately for years. Their downfall didn't begin when people found out. It began when they stopped being real. The internet didn't destroy them. It simply played the footage of their own undoing, frame by frame, in perfect resolution. They thought cancellation was an external attack, a coordinated effort to bring them down. But there was no conspiracy. What ended them wasn't exposure. It was accumulation. Every lie, every contradiction, every performance stacked up until the weight of their own deceit collapsed inward. They weren't victims of the mob. They were architects of their own collapse. The applause they once craved turned into echoes, and the same followers who once celebrated them began recognizing the performance for what it was. Empty repetition. The truth doesn't cancel, it clarifies. It strips away the stage lights and leaves you standing in reality, unedited and uncomfortable. And when their truth came into focus, the illusion they'd built couldn't survive the clarity. The problem wasn't that the internet judged them too harshly. It's that the footage was too clear to deny. Every contradiction, every inconsistency, every slip of authenticity recorded itself in high definition, leaving no room for excuse. Their downfall wasn't dramatic. It was diagnostic. The exposure didn't ruin them. It revealed what had already decayed. Public reaction was just the echo of a private erosion that had been happening all along, and when that erosion finally hit daylight, there was no one left to blame. In the end, being cancelled was too generous a term. They weren't taken down, they simply stopped holding up. The world didn't destroy them. It just watched, in perfect clarity, as the mask they built couldn't survive its own resolution. Number 14. The real evidence wasn't found. It was finally seen. Nothing new appeared, no shocking leak, no hidden file unearthed. The truth had always been sitting in plain sight, disguised by familiarity. People didn't overlook it because it was invisible. They overlooked it because they didn't want to believe it. When the illusion was strong, the obvious looked complicated. And when the truth finally broke through, it didn't come as revelation. It came as recognition. Everyone realized they had seen the signs before. They just hadn't connected them. They spent years perfecting distraction. They spoke in circles, buried sincerity under charm, and used confusion as camouflage. But truth has a strange kind of patience. It doesn't chase. It waits. Over time, their contradictions started aligning. The same phrases, the same excuses, the same behavioral loops began to form a picture that couldn't be denied. It wasn't a new discovery. It was the moment perception caught up with reality. When people finally saw clearly, it wasn't outrage that filled the air. It was disappointment. Because deep down, everyone already knew. The small details that didn't add up, the moments that felt off, the energy that didn't match the words, all those fragments assembled themselves into a truth too complete to look away from. Their exposure wasn't caused by investigation, it was caused by attention finally sharpening. The irony is that they were never hiding well, they were just banking on people's willingness to stay distracted. But truth has a way of aging gracefully. It doesn't expire, it just waits for the right light. And when that light finally hit, their performance collapsed under its own transparency. The world didn't uncover a secret. It simply stopped pretending not to see. What ended them wasn't discovery, but clarity. Because truth doesn't need to arrive dramatically. Sometimes it just stands there, silent and obvious, waiting for everyone else to finally look up. In the end, it was never about the phone, the screenshots, or the data. It was about the truth that technology simply refused to hide anymore. Every deleted message, every filtered photo, every silence they thought was safe became a breadcrumb leading straight back to who they really were. Their downfall wasn't sudden, it was gradual. A slow unraveling of image, motive, and intent that had been recorded in real time. They didn't get exposed by chance, they were revealed by design. Because the truth doesn't need effort, it only needs time. They built their world on edits, on half-truths and digital performances polished to look perfect. But perfection is heavy, and lies eventually collapse under their own weight. When the illusion finally shattered, it didn't make a sound, it just stopped working. The persona they crafted couldn't withstand reality's clarity. The phone didn't betray them, it simply reflected the difference between appearance and authenticity. And in that reflection, everyone finally saw the cost of pretending too long. What destroyed them wasn't technology or exposure. It was avoidance. They ran from honesty until the truth caught up and mirrored them in 4K detail. Because no matter how modern the world gets, the ancient law remains. What's hidden will surface, and what's false will fail. So if there's a lesson buried inside all this, it's simple. Don't fear exposure, fear imitation. The world doesn't need a flawless version of you, it needs a real one. Because truth, once revealed, doesn't destroy, it purifies. If you found this message powerful, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more mind-opening insights. Like, comment, and share this video to help others see beyond the surface. Because somewhere out there, another illusion is about to crack, and someone needs to hear the truth before it does. Stay awakened, chosen ones.